Hello everyone, welcome to the podcast channel of the Faculty of Business and Economics of the University of Pannonia. My name is Réka Vámosi. The topic of today's discussion is Women Leading Community Resilience. Women play a critical role in disaster risk reduction and response efforts, but often face significant barriers and challenges in their efforts to lead and participate in these initiatives. Overall, increasing women's participation and leadership in community resilience efforts is essential for building more effective and sustainable solutions to the impact of disasters and crises. My talk partner today is Dr. Aubrey Paris, a policy advisor on gender, climate change and innovation in the Secretary's Office of Global Women's Issues at the US Department of State. At the State Department, she launched the Innovation Station podcast channel to facilitate innovation-themed public diplomacy and draw subnational connections between domestic and international communities. She authors the monthly Science Speaks and formerly What's Up with Science blog series on the State Department DipNote platform. She is actively researching the role of women, girls, and marginalized population in building community resilience. I'm glad that you accepted our invitation and thank you for joining us today.
It's absolutely my pleasure. Hello, everyone. I'm really excited to be speaking with you and to hopefully raise some awareness regarding this really important topic that I know is sometimes under-recognized. So it's my pleasure to be here.
Great. So I feel lucky that I was able to listen to your keynote speech in the Pannon Community Hub this afternoon, and it was really interesting, thought-provoking, and up-to-date topic, I can say. And would you mind to start this conversation with a brief introduction of yourself, your background and career?
Oh, I'd be honored. So I am a scientist by training who then moved into the policymaking sphere in the US government.
Yeah.
So my technical background is that I have a PhD in chemistry and materials science from Princeton University. My graduate studies were in what we consider carbon dioxide utilization.
Yeah.
So finding ways to transform carbon dioxide into more useful products to potentially incentivize climate change mitigation.
Mm-hmm.
And prior to that, I received my undergraduate degree, my Bachelor of Science in Chemistry and Biology from a small liberal arts school called Ursinus College. And it was really that experience that introduced me to the concept of science policy, science communication, and looking at science from an interdisciplinary perspective and how science intersects with society. So I joined the State Department in 2019 and started this work related to the intersection of gender and climate change in the Secretary of State's Office of Global Women's Issues about 2 years ago.
2 years ago. Okay. It's very interesting. So you were a scientist and then work with this issue with women and girls and climate-related community challenges. What inspired you? How did you get into this topic?
Well, my answer is actually a bit personal in terms of my personal story. I mean, I've obviously always been a scientist and someone who loves science, and climate change was one of the most important science-related challenges that we have as a society today. So the climate side is not hard to convince me at all, right, from the scientist perspective. Yeah. The gender side and the women's issues side, the inspiration really comes from personal experience as a woman in the sciences. And so during my own graduate studies, I experienced differential treatment by my peers on occasions because of my gender.
Yeah.
There are particular experiences that I've had where I have been questioned, my authority in my field of study had been questioned, or I was looked at funny for being able to talk about my work effectively, things like that really rub you the wrong way, I think, you know. And so doing something about this broader issue of gender equity and equality was very important to me. So being able to combine a scientific topic with some of these more social and personal to me topics was something very appealing.
It's very interesting. How many women scientists are? Who is in majority, the male or female scientists?
I think in general, men still tend to outnumber women overall in most
Mhm.
science, technology, engineering, and mathematics fields.
Mhm.
However, it's hard to generalize because different subdisciplines,
Mhm.
so different types of science or
Mhm.
engineering, they might skew one way or the other. I think what's interesting is we as a society have really been promoting women and girls in what we call STEM fields, so science, technology,
Yeah.
engineering, and math. And because we want to see more of them in these fields. What's interesting is that in many places, in many countries, the numbers of women and girls in these fields, the graduates with the degrees,
Yes.
has been increasing. Sometimes the degree holders, there's actually more women than men, but it's after they graduate or they can't get a job in that field because of various structural, institutional, cultural barriers, systemic barriers that exist, which is almost the next stage of the problem.
This is interesting, the gap between the graduation and finding the job.
Yeah, absolutely.
Challenging issues. Okay, just go forward and continue the conversation with the next question. How can local action protect the environment and advance climate change adaptation and mitigation?
Wow. I think we recognize that there's a really important role for local action alongside the international negotiations and international partnerships and things like that. You kind of need to be, I know it's a term that we like to use, firing on all cylinders, coming at a problem from all angles when the problem is as urgent as the climate crisis. From the local level, I think there's a lot of power in understanding the local context. What specific issues are facing a specific community, and what societal context are we operating in that might make it more or less challenging to affect change regarding that challenge. So for example, one community might face prolonged drought, whereas another community might be just inundated by seawater constantly. Right? These are different challenges that need to be addressed distinctly. And we also need to be able to recognize what types of solutions are going to be effective for a given community. Are programs more applicable? Are they more acceptable to a community? Are technologies? In some communities, technology is terrifying. So we wouldn't want to go in and apply a technological solution. So that local context is absolutely critical.
Yeah, actually, just go deeper into this topic and focus on women. What role do women play in building and strengthening the resilience of communities? And it would be nice if you could mention some successful examples of women-led initiatives. You mentioned some in your presentation, and they were so interesting. Just pick up some.
I could talk about this for hours, but I won't.
I'm pretty sure.
So ultimately, the role of women and girls in this space really cannot be overstated, because in many parts of the world, women and girls have distinct relationships with their families, with their communities, and with their broader environment. And what that means is that oftentimes they're the first ones to notice when a challenge is occurring, when the water is disappearing, when the fish are disappearing, when, you name it. So they almost can act like an early warning system. They know when solutions are needed. Yeah. And then because of their relationships with their communities and their families, they get to the answer to your previous question. They know what sorts of solutions people are going to react positively towards so that they'll actually try them out. I mean, a solution is only as good as its implementation in a particular location. And understanding the community context, which women and girls often do, is critical to that. So what are some tangible examples? I'm going to try to give a few that are fairly diverse in terms of their themes. I think water is a pretty big challenge in many parts of the world. We've seen a women-led organization, for example, that's based in Kenya, that has been training women as water supply workers.
Yes.
They're training them to construct water containment facilities, and then training them to be able to run businesses related to water distribution, which is doubly important. It's affecting change regarding water security and also women's economic empowerment. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
There's an interesting solution when it comes to agriculture that we've seen, a women-led organization where they're trying to help isolated communities who have trouble accessing food products
Mm-hmm.
to be able to grow their own in sustainable fashions.
Mm-hmm.
So they build out sustainable agricultural systems all packed into a shipping container.
Yeah.
And they ship the container to the community.
Yeah.
It's then, run by solar power, drip irrigation, other sustainable tools, and those communities can then generate their own food supplies, and they can also then potentially sell to markets. We've seen this organization do really great work with refugee and migrant communities, with indigenous communities, and just other food deserts.
Mm-hmm.
Goodness, there are so many examples.
That was the solar energy, to use the solar,
That one
nice.
is fantastic. That's a great one. Thank you for reminding me.
Yeah.
Another organization has recognized the energy poverty situation in many parts of the global south, and has recognized specifically the effects of energy scarcity on maternal health and newborn health.
Yeah.
And so they developed a modular solar energy kit that can be installed in maternal health facilities, so that people aren't trying to deliver babies in the dark without any electricity or supplies, which is the reality.
Yeah, but it's reality, yeah.
So there are these and other examples. I'll give you less of a technological one as well. We think it's very important to be able to share stories.
Yeah.
About climate resilience and successful adaptation and mitigation practices. And it's also important to share stories so that we can inspire action. And so there's a wonderful organization whose climate resilience unit is women-led, and they're developing film projects with local communities and giving local communities who are the ones experiencing the flood, they are the ones experiencing the wildfire, etc., to let those communities generate films documenting their experiences, and then using those films at film festivals and other venues to help inspire action. Because if you can see how it's affecting an issue like a wildfire or a flood is affecting a specific person, you might feel more inspired to take action. Yeah. So these are just a few examples. I mean, I could go on, but I don't want to bore your audience.
No. I'm pretty sure that they are interested in it. And I do believe in storytelling. I think because you can see it through the eyes of a person, and you can understand better how things going. I'm very interested in how you can be an agent of change. And do you think that you are an influencer? It is
me personally.
Yes. Just think it over, because as we have discussed earlier, we have a lot of projects at our university and even at our faculty, and we have a Green Cool Erasmus Plus project funded by the European Union. And the spicy is that the participant universities are from ECOC towns, European Capital of Culture towns, Timisoara, Tartu, Kaunas, Athens, and of course Veszprém. And we want to raise awareness towards sustainable development, circular economy among higher education students, and we would like to develop an innovative course material. And the innovation part of this material, course material, is that we would like to teach them such communication techniques what are used by influencers, and somehow they became greenfluencers. And then when they participate, because it is in the project as well, that they participate on ECOC festivals, and they can share this knowledge, and they can share this topic and this issue among wider audience. Right. And that is why I'm interested in it. What do you think about influencers, the role of them? How do you define yourself in this context?
I love that question. I've never been asked that before. I think that, I don't know, perhaps if a civil servant in the US government can be an influencer, then perhaps I can be one, just because I think it's really important to continue spreading awareness about this particular topic of the intersections between women and girls and the climate crisis writ large. and someone has to do the talking. And any chance I get, I love to do that because I'm very passionate about it. And I think in order to take action as an individual, you first have to be inspired. So to get to that point, who is inspiring people to take action?
Yeah.
It depends on who that community trusts. And so you need a wide variety of voices to inspire action regardless of what topic you're talking about. You need to know if your community trusts influencers in the traditional sense, the social media influencers, or do they trust someone in their local community, maybe a teacher, maybe a religious figure, maybe it's a political figure. It depends on the community. And so I think anyone can be an influencer in that regard if they have the trust of an audience, right? So that's the answer to that part of the question. I think the agent of change question, I think there are so many ways that people can become an agent of change. The first step, however, is educating oneself and understanding the topic at hand, because one of the most dangerous things is when we're spreading information that we don't know to be true. I think that's very, very accurate when it comes to the climate crisis as well. So after you've kind of built up this knowledge base on a topic, I think having conversations with audiences about that topic is how you start to be an agent of change. Talking to your family members, talking to your friends, your peers, your colleagues, especially ones who might have a different opinion about the topic than you, and having informed and educated conversations. And then from there, it turns to action. Can you find other people in other communities who have similar passions, and can you work together to take tangible action? So there are different layers, and there's always another step that can be done. But like starting at the beginning and learning, I think, is a great place for people to start.
Yes, and maybe the key point that you mentioned, the trust.
Yes.
The trust is very important.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, let's go to the next topic. Can you tell us how can communities advance resilience in the context of entertainment and creative industry and tourism? Because as a faculty of business and economics, we teach tourism as well, of course, and we have. And I just want to mention very quickly that the university established a Sustainable Competence Center based on circular economy. And this is a university-wide project, but the Sustainable Tourism sub-project was led by the faculty, and there were 3 branches of this project. Tourism all year round, sustainable festivals, and circular economy awareness programs. So we organized summer camps, competitions for high school students and university students, and trainings. And the researchers did a lot of research in sustainable. How can we organize festivals in a sustainable way? And this is the connection to my question that I'm very interested in your opinion and your experiences, because you mentioned a lot of things in your presentations.
I did. This is a really important and a really exciting topic, because while there are a lot of sustainability challenges, I think there are so many opportunities that can be harnessed as we tackle those challenges. And you already heard me talk about in this interview the role of storytelling in inspiring this action. Well, how do you tell stories? Sometimes it's in film and television. Sometimes it's through other large-scale events and festivals, which all kind of fit within this entertainment, creative industry type of sphere. And it's connected to tourism in many ways, one of which is tourists coming to partake in these sorts of big events and things like that. So it's very interconnected, but it's a big topic. I'll start with some of the challenges, which might be obvious to some audience members or viewers. And that's the fact that ultimately these industries can be very waste and energy intensive. So running power supplies to power a hotel, to
Yes.
power a concert venue,
Exactly.
to power whatever aspect. There's so many
Yeah.
elements. Very energy intensive. And oftentimes, I've heard the entertainment industry described in a way such that it's circus style, in that it is not always permanent. It's picked up and it moves to another location, or it moves to different places in a city. So you don't really have permanently installed infrastructure that can be built in a green way. So instead, you're carrying around generators, which aren't always very efficient, or you're mobile, so you have lots of mobile food and water products, water bottles, things like that. And so there's the energy challenges, there's the waste challenges, the food waste that is generated, the physical waste, the water bottles, etc.
Yeah.
So those are some of the key challenges to contend with. The good news is you can, if you want to be sustainably minded, you can think of solutions to these problems and be proactive about it. And what are the benefits if you do? Well, there's a huge economic advantage to having entertainment and creative industries active in a city. It's the reason why in the United States, almost every city has its own film commission to attract entertainment industry players to create productions in their city, because it stimulates the hospitality industry. It stimulates local businesses. It creates jobs for people to work on the production or the crew for an event. Lots of opportunity there.
Yes.
It also can stimulate tourism, not just in the moment, but later. If there are long-term installations, like art installations or things like that, remnants of a festival or an event people might come to see. So you have tourism. But I think the biggest long-term impact when folks are being proactive in this space, if you know that a large event like the Culture Capital Year is going to be here for a whole year, that's incredible. And there's been planning going on for years, I learned, which is also incredible. You can start looking at, okay, what systems do we currently have in place that will need to support all of the people coming in to attend or even work at these events? Where could we improve the sustainability? Where could we make the transportation more energy efficient, more green? Where could we improve sustainability in hotels, for example? How can we amend our waste management system to be able to handle this massive influx of waste? Do we need to modify our recycling system? Continuously, you can ask these questions, and then if you put them in place for the year of Culture Capital, or any other event, even if it's more short term, you could see those institutions persist well beyond the year of being the Culture Capital, well beyond that concert, well beyond that film production. So now you have instituted long-term sustainability in your community, which I think is a really exciting opportunity.
Exactly. And I think the audience of these festivals are interested in it more and more to enjoy or entertain in a sustainable way as well. I think, it's a good opportunity, and I think our ECOP management do their best to organize everything in a sustainable way. And and just the short supply chain came into my mind, to promote all food suppliers here in the neighborhood.
I just have to say, I've met several of the ECOP team members today and heard about their plans, and I've been so impressed by all of the incredible things that they're doing already and thinking about and continuing. So very, very exciting to hear.
Yeah, that's nice. Okay, next question. How can the global community work together to address the intersection of climate change, innovation, and gender?
It's a big question.
It's a big question.
Well, let me start by defining innovation
Okay.
the way I see it and the way we try to talk about it from this gender climate work in my office.
Mm-hmm.
So we know that innovation can be scientific. We know it can be a technology,
Mm-hmm.
but we think it can be so much broader than that. We think it can also be a program or an initiative, or something else that's less physically tangible.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Well, because innovation is truly at its core finding a challenge and using context-specific information
Mm-hmm.
to address that challenge in a novel way.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be technological or it might not be.
Yes.
So recognizing that broad definition of innovation, we also have observed that in many parts of the world around the United States and in other countries, women and girls are sometimes our most innovative and creative advocates and solution generators to some of these climate-related challenges.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, they don't often have the platform or the
Mm-hmm.
voice to share about the work that they're doing. And they might be having a great impact in their small town or village, and that's phenomenal. But there's a really good chance that their work could be applied in some way. Best practices could be applied in some way to other local contexts and other communities. And so we think it's really important to recognize that, climate change does not respect borders.
Yes.
Different communities are facing similar challenges within their local contexts. And so what we've done is to try to take action on this recognition, the Secretary's Office of Global Women's Issues at the State Department launched an initiative called the Innovation Station back in July of 2021, and it's still active.
Right.
It's our initiative to identify and amplify women and girls who are generating creative, translatable solutions to climate-related community challenges. What does that mean?
Yes.
What it means is we're finding these women and girl-led solutions that are having immense impact where they are operating currently, and we're giving them a platform. As this, being the State Department and our Women's Issues Office, we have a bit of a platform. We're giving them a platform to talk about their work and what others can learn from it to global communities. We do that through a virtual event series, a podcast, a newsletter, various public-facing components.
Yeah.
But then behind the scenes, we help those women build their networks and get in touch with and build relationships with other communities around the United States or around the world that could benefit from knowing about their work. And we've seen, once we make those connections, we kind of, let those relationships form, and then we try to follow up and see what's happened. But we know that as a result of their participation in this initiative, some of the women and girls in our network have been able to share best practices with other communities that have then implemented those best practices. They've been able to develop new collaborations in new cities and new countries. And I think that's really exciting because it's going to help us to address our shared climate and environmental challenges faster. And don't we need that? There's an urgent crisis at hand. Yeah. And so if we can learn from one another across communities, I think that's really powerful. And we can almost build new communities. We think of communities as really local areas, right? Small scale local areas. But because of these shared challenges, if we build even virtual connections, we can almost develop new, more global communities to share these best practices and hopefully inspire action.
Yeah, inspire action. And just came into my mind that maybe we could share the access to this innovation station, because you mentioned that there is an application process to join to this, and maybe somebody will want to join from Hungary as well.
We absolutely. We're always taking recommendations of creative and innovative solutions generated by women and girls to consider for inclusion as part of this project. We're also happy to share the link to the podcast that memorializes these important conversations and all of that kind of fun stuff. So thank you so much for thinking of that.
Okay, thank you. And last but not least, as wrapping up this discussion, do you have a message for our students and lecturers?
I could choose so many. Let's see. The one that I will pick is a personal message. So this is my personal opinion, not necessarily reflecting the views of the US government. But as a scientist who has a strong liberal arts and an interdisciplinary background, I think that I have observed that when it comes to addressing climate change and other global challenges, it's very important to look to science, technology, and engineering for some of our potential solutions. However, I've also observed really incredible scientific advances that don't really end up going anywhere application-wise because we cannot get the trust of the public. Because they don't understand, which isn't their fault. They're not scientists necessarily, and it's not their fault if they don't understand, right? It takes an interdisciplinary perspective to be able to gain the trust and explain the significance of these sorts of advances to broader communities so that we can tackle our challenges. And what that means is there is a role for everyone, regardless of your educational background and the discipline that you studied and the sector that you work in, when it comes to taking action to address these challenges. Because what does interdisciplinary mean? It means the combination of different disciplines, whether that be, in my case, chemistry and foreign policy and climate change, or whether it's looking at things from a communications perspective or a business perspective, or a law and regulatory perspective, or so many other perspectives. So everyone can really play a role here if we take this interdisciplinary approach to solving our most pressing global challenges.
That's nice. Interdisciplinary approach.
Yes.
Great. Dear Aubrey, thank you for joining us. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. I enjoyed it very much. And I wish you success in your future work.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the thoughtful questions. They were great questions. And I hope that folks listening in maybe can take something from this conversation into their own efforts. But at the very least, I hope that you've learned a little bit about the intersection between gender, climate change, and innovation.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your attention. For more information, please visit the website of the faculty at www.gtk.unipannon.hu. Goodbye.